Good evening. I'd like to call the March 2nd, 2020 Davie County Commissioners meeting to order. I'd like to welcome this great crowd this evening. Appreciate everyone coming out. So at this time, I would ask Reverend Billy Seats to lead us in the invocation.
Amen. Let's pray. Father, we come to you in Jesus' name, thanking you for these men and ladies here on the board, these people, the congregation here tonight. Everyone's got needs and thoughts and things, and we need wisdom. Give the commissioners wisdom. Give us, Lord, just a good spirit and a good time tonight. The Lord, help the commissioners to make the decisions that are needed and need to be done, that God might be glorified. Bless each one of them now. Bless each person in this room. Ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. At this time, if you will stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Again, welcome. At this time, I will call on the county attorney for the ethics and conflicts disclosure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 168-86, and in addition, the Davie County Board of County Commissioners Code of Ethics adopted December 2nd, 2019. I'd ask each of you before you adopt the agenda if there's any actual, potential, or perceived conflicts of interest with respect to any matter on the proposed agenda, which will come before the board tonight for a vote at this meeting. If so, please speak up and let the board know at this time before the agenda is adopted. Seeing no one, Mr. Chair, I conclude there's no actual, potential, or perceived conflicts of interest, and return the matter back over to you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. The agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for a solar farm. I will call on Mr. Meadwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, before Mr. Meadwell starts, the public comment sign-up sheet, the first four had longleaf pines, which I believe is the solar farm, and then number 7 also had the solar farm. We might need to make an announcement that those people have the opportunity to speak now instead of at the public comment section later. That's what they're speaking about. Okay, I'm sorry.
For clarification, there is a public hearing we're getting ready to have, and if you use your time for a public hearing, you speak both if you wish, but if you speak at the public hearing, you have unlimited time, whereas if you speak at public comment, your comments would be limited to 3 minutes. Totally up to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Tonight you have rezoning or zoning map amendment 2020-01. This is a request to rezone 29.57 acres and a 15-acre portion of property from residential 20 quality design overlay to special purpose conditional district. The total proposed rezoning area is 45 acres. Included in your package, you'll see the outlined area that identifies what the tracts are being rezoned or which is being requested. The subject properties are located at 1415 Beecham Road near the intersection with Baltimore Road, and the properties are further described as Davie County Tax Parcel E7 127 and the 15-acre portion of E7 116, which is currently being subdivided by the applicant. As I mentioned in your package, you do have a zoning map of the area. Much of the area is currently zoned R20. Also included in your agenda package, you see an aerial photograph which identifies the property is being used for some agricultural type purposes currently. The map also identifies that this area in our newly adopted land development plan identifies this area as residential mixed use. And is listed as a secondary growth area on our growth enhancement strategy map. The land use or zoning in the area, the property was originally zoned for R20 in 1973, but if the board recalls, there was a another solar facility just south of this site at 757 Baltimore Road for another special purpose district for a similar type use. The special purpose district, this is a district that's established to accommodate those type uses that may have a greater than normal impact on those surrounding property owners or subject pieces of property. If the board recalls, for this special purpose district, there are certain standards that the district has to meet. There's a acreage amount, which is 25 acres, additional front yards, side yards, and rear yard setbacks, as well as buffering requirements. But probably the biggest requirement is that there has to be a community meeting prior to being submitted to the planning board, which those notes and minutes from that meeting are included in your package as well. As I mentioned, this does come to the board as a special conditions zoning, meaning that the board has the ability to place additional conditions on the subject use. Conditions may range from, the location of the use on the property, extent of supporting facilities, extent and locations of buffers, things of that nature. But they have to be those type conditions that address conformance to the zoning ordinance or conformance to the comprehensive plan. So, and to address those issues that may arise from the subject use. So, as I mentioned, as a special conditions, this is a two-step process. There'll be actually two votes. You'll vote one on the actual rezoning of the property, and the second vote will be for the actual conditions that may be imposed on the subject use. Things that the board should consider when making its recommendation is the property's potential as a residential or agricultural use. As with any rezoning to a different type of land use, that type of projects or or development of the project still has to come through our TRC process to where you find that it meets all the compliance with our zoning ordinances. Whether the proposed reclassification is consistent with the overall character of the existing areas in the development in the area, or if the reclassification is consistent with the purposes and goals, objectives of the county itself. Included in your package are a list of draft conditions. These were conditions that the planning board applied to the request, and I can go over those right now if you'd like. There were four. That was that the use of the property shall be limited to a solar energy generating facility, that the utilization of an opaque fence along all boundaries of the project, implement 2 rows of staggered vegetative buffer on the eastern boundary of Baltimore Road of the project, consisting of existing vegetation and a planted vegetative buffer closer to the fence, and a double staggered row of vegetation around the site, with the exception of the southwestern side by the existing stream where existing vegetation will be counted for the required buffer. What the applicant has actually submitted in, they have actually went above what the planning board has suggested, or even what our current zoning ordinance requires for the use itself. They've went ahead and you can see on your included site plan is they've went ahead and included the opaque fence around the entire site and added 2 rows of staggered vegetative buffer along those areas right there. So they have met or went above what the planning board has required in that. As I mentioned, the planning board did hear this at their January 28th meeting and did vote unanimously to approve by a vote of 7-0. And those minutes and recommendations are included in your package. Board action, the board should consider one of the following actions tonight for the rezoning. That is, move that the following statement be adopted in support of a motion to approve. To move that the following statement be adopted in support of a motion to deny, or 3, defer the request for additional consideration. So I'll be more than glad to answer any questions that the board may have at this time. The applicant is here to present the request to you as well, but I'll be more than glad to answer any questions that the board may have right now.
Any questions from Mr. Meadwell at this point?
They, as in the normal process, they will present a bond for cleanup
Oh, correct. And that's a requirement as part of our ordinance that there's a decommissioning plan. There's we set those amounts, 125% of the cost, minus any of the recyclables and things like that. So that is mandatory that they have to present some form of guarantee, whether it be a letter of credit, cash, something of that nature that's outlined in the ordinance. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Andrew, what are the setbacks on the fence per the site plan? Do you know?
I think it was, they said it 25 feet off of the road right away, if I'm not mistaken.
25 feet off
Yeah.
the right.
But there's a larger setback distance from the ordinance from where the actual panels themselves can sit back, which is 100 feet.
Mr. Meadwell, does Baltimore Road, to your knowledge, have a 60-foot or 100-foot right-of-way?
My understanding is 60 feet. 60 feet.
Any other questions at this point? Okay, thank you, Mr. Meadwell. Okay, so this is a public hearing, so I will ask Mr. Vogler to remind us of the rules of engagement.
As announced, this is a day and hour for a public hearing pursuant to Chapter 153A of the North Carolina General Statutes and Chapter 10 of the Davie County Code of Ordinances. This board is conducting a public hearing on proposed amendments to the Davie County Code of Ordinance, Chapter 155, with regards to an application by Longleaf Pine Solar LLC, which has applied to rezone approximately 43.44 acres of land consisting of 2 tracts from residential R20 to special purpose, special condition, SPS. The subject property is located at 1415 Beecham Road. The properties are further described as parcels in Davie County tax parcel as E700000127 and portion E700000116. There has been due publication of notice of the public hearing in the newspaper with general circulation in Davie County as required, and the clerk to the board has attached the affidavit showing publication in the paper on the date at least 10 days prior to today's date. I would ask that all who wish to comment at this public hearing come forward to the podium, state your full name for the board, and then comment on the proposal. You may come now. This is a public hearing on a rezoning matter on a solar farm.
But it's not the 3-minute.
No, this is an open, but it's only on the zoning matter.
Correct. My question is, when does the Davie County Zoning Board and the Commissioners,
Excuse me, for the record, state your name and address, please.
pardon me, James Coles, MD, 310 Clayton Drive, in the Farmington area, Davie County. My question is, when will the Zoning Board and subsequently the Board of Commissioners stop rubber stamping these appeals by out-of-county corporations to establish solar farms in our county? Now, this Longleaf is tonight. Last Monday, I was at the zoning board for the another company from Charlotte. None of the people as experts at the zoning board were from Davie County. They were all hired representatives. And I'm curious if anybody from Longleaf actually lives in Davie County. We're between the Yadkins, the fork of the Yadkins. We have the entire watershed of Dutchman's Creek coming down into the Yadkins. And we have to ask why we're so facile or non-discriminatory in inviting folks to potentially contaminate our agricultural land, which after 20, 30, or 40 years will result in actual water-soluble heavy metals in our water. I present an article by Michael Schellenberger. This is May 2014 on solar panel waste. The problem of solar panel disposal is going to explode in 2 or 3 decades even as the efficiency of these panels becomes more effective. They're wrapped, of course, in plastic. Then there's tempered glass, and it's protected completely because there's toxicity. The cadmium, the tellurium, copper, indium, and other heavy metals are in there. It's also small amounts of lead, and the lead is there especially after you compact or destroy the panel. Recycling is not that easy. You can, if the solar panels last till 30% efficiency over, say, 25 years, nobody's going to recycle them into the next solar farm. Almost all the recycling ends up going either to China or India or some other place where they grind up the panels. And this ground up frist includes the lead and any other particulates that are included with the panel. Glass frit mixed with silver alloy, then heated to etch the metals into the cell. This glass frit historically contained small amounts of lead in the form of lead oxide, and if the soldering is done with lead, and there's no apparent regulation, thin solder-covered copper tabs from the back of one cell to the front of the next cell. Please excuse my tremor. A tin-based solder containing some lead is used, but other manufacturers have switched to lead-free solder. I submit this article by Tommy Cleveland. This was submitted along with the last appeal on Monday. Tommy is a mechanical engineer at NC State and has written this paper about the health and safety impacts of solar photovoltaics. This is probably not going to be silicone because it's industrial based. It's not the same you put on your roof. So it's going to have 4 or 5 thin layers of some of these heavy metals. He describes all this, and of course, nobody asked him any questions. I would really like to see if Tommy Cleveland could work with our county to test the Dutchman's Creek water up at Cana Road before it gets to the golf course for the heavy metals, including lead, cadmium, and add coliform bacteria perhaps, or mercury or other things to find out what's there. Test it again below the high school, which is downstream from the next solar farm proposal where I-40 crosses. Test it again as it exits into the Davie, the Yadkin, and ask yourself, if every 5 years we're having any kind of increase. Now this wholly contained drainage system of Dutchman's Creek could be invaluable to understanding the effects of these panels over the life of a panel. And that kind of research could be completely useful for other communities. The pattern here with these corporate patterns is to get the lease, of course, and then they look at the property owners. If you have 180 property owners who are affected and 15 show up and 5 of them oppose it, it doesn't carry much weight. Last Monday, there were 5 of us who opposed the zoning board. The corporate name, do you recall? No. Monday on the corporate name. Bird's Eye Energy. So you you look at that, and then they bring in somebody who discusses the obsolescence of the land, which attempts to show that you put a solar farm in some other community and the people don't seem to mind it. Well, it's a false comparison because this is Davie County and there's nothing else like Davie County. And we have this singular watershed that comes through the county. So this gentleman talks about why, if solar panels are so clean, why do they produce this toxic waste? And California, which has the longest, some of this is from Germany, California has the longest history of solar panels, and they now have the Silicon Valley Toxic Waste Commission. In the last 2 years, it's taken them that long, for 2 years, to decide they couldn't just put the solar panels in a landfill, which they had been doing. They decided that's not safe to do anymore. And lastly, of course, is the North Carolina legislative session, this 2019, signed into law Friday by Governor Roy Cooper, requires decommissioning rules for utility-scale solar and wind farms by the start of 2022. Now, Energy United has a substation there. They'll probably distribute this solar power at 80% of the cost per kilowatt hour of any other energy, their mix of energy. Now, that might be nice in Davie County, but those people who see the solar farm are not going to get any of that power particularly. I don't know where this Longleaf power station is going to go. The option is for them to add a battery to store some of the energy. And I'd specifically want to know if they're going to have a battery the size of a desk with lead or cadmium, lithium combination storage for the electricity during peak times and all. That would be another potential hazard. The last thing is that we don't think very much down the road in the future. I've always been about preventive medicine. 30 years, 40 years from now, what are we going to have in Davie County that's attractive? We look at the property values, tax income. We look at a solar farm being a nice, quiet place that doesn't cause any commotion. But if you wanted to have more people moving in and living in homes that had value, that was taxable, put a gas station on the corner of Farmington Road or something, coming down to the high school, you build a nice new high school and you don't have enough kids to use it because the population with families isn't coming in. So I strongly object to this. I'm sure that the experts will make their own conditions. The outside experts, I might say. But there was one other thing that's just curious. Whenever they put together this form, zoning map amendment, project profile, they include, the zoning district, land use plan, applicant, Perrendale Holdings. Watershed, not available, not applicable. What does NA stand for? And here you are in the Dutchman's Creek watershed area with this Perrendale Holdings company. And I don't know where the other solar farms are and what their water drainage is. I think it's something to look into. And I appreciate your time. I will simply hand some of my research over. If anybody has some copies in there.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to make a comment? public hearing. Let's come forward.
Good evening to the board. My name is Chrissy Valcourt, 1A Robbins Roost in Whispering Pines. I'm a resident of Moore County here in North Carolina, and I'm a developer with Gringo Energy. We are the developer for the Longleaf Pine Solar Project. I know this project has generated a lot of interest in the community. As Andrew mentioned, we have done some community outreach. In fact, we did 2 rounds of community outreach. So the first round that we did was back in November or February of 2018. And so there were some concerns from the neighbors about the project. We heard the typical kind of health and safety concerns. People were concerned about the view shed. So at that point, the project was still in the very early stages of development. We kind of circled up internally, continued to develop the project, and then held a second round of community outreach just this past November 2019. And so what we did at that point was, we worked with the community to implement ways to decrease the view shed of the solar farm. So as Andrew noted, we I think had initially contemplated some opaque fencing on certain areas adjacent to some neighbors and some vegetative buffering. Since the last hearing, we took some of the concerns to heart and decided to go above and beyond. And that's when we decided to implement the opaque fence around the entire perimeter of the solar farm, as well as double staggered vegetation around the entire perimeter. So we want the community to know that we hear their concerns, and we're doing everything we can to work with them. So this is, I think, as the board has seen their packets, it's a typical 5 megawatt solar farm. It'll be single axis tracking panels. We do not believe the solar farm will cause any kind of health or safety concerns. I have here tonight with me a North Carolina certified electrical engineer. He'd be happy to answer any questions, technical questions the board has about health or safety or toxicity. And additionally, we have a property appraiser to talk about, discuss property values if the board has some questions about property values. Does the board have any questions for me?
And I'll make a comment about this in just a little while, but I would like for you to respond to the issue of this question. In a solar farm cleanup, are those panels considered toxic waste?
No. So
by EPA standards, they're not considered when you're cleaned up, when you have to clean those projects up, that's not considered toxic waste.
the EPA does not test solar panels. So I can't say what the EPA would say. The EPA does not test them. So when the solar panels are decommissioned, they're taken down just like anything else. We use the panels that we're using on this site are actually manufactured here in the U.S. by First Solar. First Solar offers a recycling program, so they will take the panels and recycle them. I have one here with me tonight. I'm happy to bring it up if you all would like to take a look. It's a thin film panel. It's encased in glass. The gentleman, I don't recall his name, that was speaking earlier, had talked about cadmium in the panels. So what actually is in the panels is it's cadmium telluride. So cadmium telluride is very heat-stable compound. On its own, cadmium is toxic, but when you combine cadmium and the telluride, that's a very heat-stable compound. So that is inside the panels. Now, can panels get destroyed? Yes, absolutely. The way they're designed to stay intact, kind of like a windshield. So there's nothing leaching out of the panels into the ground. So panels are mounted onto a racking system, and then that racking system is mounted onto a galvanized steel pile, which is what's driven into the ground.
How many solar farms do you operate?
We have 8 that we just finished construction on last year, and then another 26 in development right now.
And how long have you all been doing this?
About 10 years. So our parent company is actually headquartered out of Copenhagen, and we started there doing roof mount solar and then moved into the U.S. market. And so this solar farm will obviously serve the existing grid. We had to go through a pretty rigorous study process with Duke Energy. So we'll be tying into Duke's existing infrastructure and then supplying the grid with power.
So let me ask you a question. So is there a battery or storage cell on the site, or
No.
it actually goes directly into Duke's system?
Exactly. So we are not contemplating any type of battery storage on the site. So yeah, the power will hit the grid. It connects to Duke's infrastructure. So there's a distribution pole across the road from Baltimore Road, and that is where our connection point would be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there others who would like to comment on this public hearing? If so, come forward and state your name.
Good evening, Chairman. My name is Chris Sandifer. I live at 3118 Green Road, Spring Hope, North Carolina, which is in Nash County. I am a graduate electrical engineer. I am a licensed professional engineer in North Carolina. I'm a licensed electrical contractor in North Carolina with unlimited classification. I serve on the Nash County Planning Board. We've approved 37 of these utility scale solar farms to date. They were all approved by the county commissioners. I own several farms. I live on a farm. We have 100 acres of solar panels currently, and looking to expand that. So they were put in 2015. So the life of those panels is probably 40 years. So I won't be here when they come out, but I can promise you I did not saddle my children with something that's going to cause them a problem. I will say that what Chrissy said was correct. The EPA does not test, but that's not saying that they don't require tests. And the test for these to be put into a Class 2 landfill is they must pass the toxic characteristic leach procedure. And that is something First Solar does test, and they have had independent laboratories, and these are deemed okay to put in a Class 2 landfill, same thing that the municipal waste from this building will go to. So they're not toxic. I'll say without hesitation, without equivocation, that these will not materially endanger the health and safety of the citizens of Davie County. Just for the background, there's been 5,600 megawatts. This is a 5 megawatt. There's already 5,600 megawatts of solar panels in North Carolina. They're already hooked to the grid, and there's twice that much in the pipeline. So, well, you can say, well, everybody made a mistake. Well, okay, you could say that, but there's been a lot of folks looked at this from a lot of folks a lot smarter than me looked at this, and they've decided that this is where we need to go. Certainly safer than coal, with coal ash and nitric oxides that are coming in, and sulfuric oxides that are coming from burning coal. There's no nuclear fuels, no spent fuel rods that has to be stored forever. I mean, this is the most benign type of power. If you want power, if you want electricity, this is probably the most benign power that you'll ever generate. She stated there is no storage facility planned for this site, so there would be no lithium-ion batteries. She did state that they do have cadmium telluride, and that is a compound, and I've stated this before, I think to this board, that, you know, we all salted our eggs this morning, that's sodium chloride, and sodium is probably one of the most caustic substances we know of, and chloride is one of the most toxic substances we know of, but when you put them together, they're very stable. And this cadmium telluride is the same way. It's not going to be leached. It's not water soluble. It's not going to be dissolved in water. And the First Solar already is recycling because they get damaged sometimes when a forklift hits a pallet or something and it destroys the panels. they ship more than they're going to use because they know that some will be damaged, and they're already in the process of reprocessing these solar panels and reusing them. They are 95% recyclable. What that means is that by weight, 95% of this solar panel is profitable to recycle and use those materials. 5% would go to the landfill. Your telephone is like 30%. Your little cell phones are 30% recyclable. 70% of that waste goes to a landfill. I mean, not somebody will recycle them, but these are highly recyclable units. So I can talk about anything about the health and safety part of it. If you have any questions on it, I would be more than glad to answer your questions the best I can.
So I have a question when you're talking about a panel getting damaged upon being installed. So are there any particular health preventatives that are taken to handle that broken panel?
Well, they're just the normal EPA or the OSHA standards. I mean, these guys wear gloves because anytime you're handling glass and sharp metal, they've got some special gloves. I don't know exactly what they're made out of. They look like some kind of knit stuff, but they use gloves when they're handling them. But that's for personal safety. It's not because they think that. I have gone to sites. I went to one this past week, and there's some broken panels that they have not located off site yet, and they're just stacked in one side of the fence. And at some point in time, they'll load those up and they'll take those to and have them recycled. They're too valuable to throw in the landfill as it is, but they will be recycled. Any other questions? Thank you.
Others who wish to comment this public hearing, if you would, please come forward, state your name.
My name is Rachel Helm. I live at 310 Clayton Drive in Moxville. And that was my husband who gave the negative report on solar panels. And I just want to say there's more than one person here tonight who agrees with him about the dangers of solar panels. I don't think they've been around long enough to even know how dangerous they are. And we probably won't find out in our generation how dangerous they are. I'm reminded of Barack Obama saying, if you will like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. And we all know there were various other lies he told us besides that one, which was so if you lie frequently enough to somebody, and if the depth of the deception is strong enough, people, according to Roger Ailes, end up believing it. So to me, it's common knowledge that solar panels are toxic. I mean, how would you all feel if I took a hammer to that solar panel that she is going to present to us? Nobody's worried about it at all? And what kind of toxic chemicals could be spewing right out of it? Not only that, but there's 2 points. One is the dissemination of this hearing and other public publications of there being solar farms going up around our area. This last week was the first time I heard about it. Now, we don't subscribe to the Enterprise Record, and I don't look up minutes all the time, but I think with 180 residences being involved and touched by this project and only 15 people showing up and less than 5 people speaking, something's wrong with your dissemination of information to the people who live in this county. And I think before you vote on any other thing to do with solar farms, you need to have a larger hearing that is very well publicized. Now, I'm not a journalist, and I'm not quite sure what the answer is, but there should be another way to be doing this. Then, one of the things that strikes me is that once you turn farmland into I was a farmer for 20 years in California, so this is really touching home for me. Once you turn farmland into a solar panel farm, that's it. It ain't going back to being a farm. There's various, I mean, I just looked up with my limited tablet here, various damage that can happen to farmland in the establishment of the farm as a solar farm, and not to mention all the unknowns of taking it apart. Now, I happen to think the information we've been presented that, oh, nothing's toxic, don't worry about it, you know, I mean, that remains to be seen, number one, and I don't believe they are presenting reliable information. So, just a brief thing I found on my computer was they talk about vegetation overgrowth. Okay, and all the other maintenance, broken conduit. Oh, guess what? We live in tornado country and hurricane country, mostly tornadoes. We're safe by the Appalachians, mountains being there, but we still have had, I think there was one that touched down within the last couple of weeks around High Point or Lexington, and that's pretty close for comfort. So, have there been any studies of hurricane or tornado damage to solar farms? Oh, and they all survived just fine because they're encased in glass. You can answer me.
Absolutely. So they can.
They withstood damage all over the place. What about vandalism? What about you have a bunch of rowdy people on a weekend night that want to go play in the solar farm? What about natural damage is one of these 16 things, like a hailstorm. Anyway, my husband really presented the most scientific discussion. And I just want to, from the human aspect of, like, zoning it for solar energy, that's going to be there forever. You can't rezone that land anymore. And that's a big deal, I think. And I think the people who live buttressing this solar farm, oh, one last thing. I don't worry about nuclear fusion. So why aren't we looking at the possibility of a power plant, a nuclear power plant? There's so much more energy produced by a nuclear power plant than there is by solar panels. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to comment at this public hearing, if you would please come forward. Podium, state your name.
Good evening. Rich Kirkland with Kirkland Appraisals. I'm out of Raleigh, North Carolina. I was hired to look at this project and whether or not it would have an impact on adjoining property values. I believe that impact analysis was presented with the application. I've been looking at that question for about 8 or 9 years now. In that time, I've looked at over 600 solar farms. Been looking at sales of homes next to solar farms. I've identified in the report here 16 different solar farms that I looked at. Most of them are right here in North Carolina. I've included, I think, one in Tennessee, one in Virginia, and one in Florida. But the rest of them, I guess the other 13 are in North Carolina. From those, I've pulled out 27 home sales adjoining solar farms and looked to see whether or not I could find any impact on property values. This is part of what's called a matched pair analysis or a paired sales analysis. This is what the Appraisal Institute puts forward as really the way you look to see if there's anything that's going to impact it. It's the same thing you do in any regular appraisal where you're looking to say, you know, these two homes are the same in all directions except this one has a garage and this one doesn't. You measure to see what the difference in impact or difference in value is for a garage. In this case, instead of looking at a garage, I was looking at an adjoining solar farm. The ones that I presented in here show a range of impacts from -5% to +7%. This is a very standard plus or minus 5% range you find that is really not indicative of any impact on the solar farm. In fact, this is just normal market values. Plus or minus 5% is a very standard deviation if I was just looking at two identical homes in a subdivision. So from that, and I guess the aggregate of those, the average between those numbers is plus 1%, and the median was plus 2%. So, I mean, they really are trending right there very close to 0% impact. And so, again, it's my professional opinion, it's not going to have an impact on property values. I've looked at, expanded around, I've been doing this type of analysis all over the country. I've looked at, again, I think I've got 85 different homes I've looked at across the country, looking at proximity to solar farms. And they're consistently showing right in that same plus or minus 5% wherever I go. I would say that I would point your attention to specifically on page 40 of the report, I do a breakdown showing the demographics around all the solar farms that I looked at, looking at population density, median incomes, median house prices around these solar farms, just to show that even though I'm looking at solar farms that are not necessarily in Davie County, they do have very similar demographics to this site where we're looking at. Similarly, on page 45, I show a breakdown of solar farms in Davie County as well as the adjoining counties that I did look at. I looked at all of these looking for sales. Trick is solar farms, you have to have a sale of a home before you can measure any impact. So, I mean, these are ones I did look at, and what they do show is that there's a similar mix of adjoining uses. There's similar residential agricultural mix of uses around them, and there's a similar distance from home to panel even around this area. And it's very consistent with what I'm seeing everywhere around the state, but also across the country. And starting on page 46, I just go down a list of criteria that would explain why there was an impact. If there's something that's going to cause an impact, it falls in these broad categories. You know, everything from hazardous materials down through noise, odors, and I'm coming down to appearance. Appearance is the only category that really solar farms point out. You hear frequently people saying they don't want to see it. The category of appearance is also the smallest one. If there's going to be an impact due to appearance, it's generally the smallest impact I can measure. Typically, when I find an impact related to that, because I do impact analysis on a lot of different things, it's typically something more like billboards, something tall, water towers, things of that nature. Again, the solar panels are going to be fairly low to the ground. They're have pretty far setbacks from neighboring properties, and they have landscaping buffers that really mitigate and address any of those appearance concerns. And that's really why I believe that when you look at the actual sales data, you're not finding any impact. I'd be happy to go into greater detail on any of this or answer any questions, but it's my professional opinion this project here is a very typical 5-megawatt facility in North Carolina and have no impact on adjoining property values.
I have a quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate the information. Were you here before us before?
I've been here before, yes, sir.
You were here with another solar developer.
Potentially. I don't recall who that was.
The gentleman from Nash County, same, right? Yes. You were here with another developer before. So you're employed, you're paid by the developer, right?
I was hired to be here, yes, sir.
By the developer?
Yes, sir.
Same? Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And again, I do other things than just work on solar. This is just one of the many jobs I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to comment at the public hearing? If you would, please come forward to the podium, state your name. Mr. Chairman, seeing no one coming forward, I would now turn the public hearing back over to you as board chair. What is the public hearing? The public comment section of this public hearing provide the board with the opportunity to discuss among yourselves what, if any, action you wish to take with regards to this matter.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Vogler, at this time, we'll declare the public hearing closed. So we've heard the various comments. So anybody on the board like to make a motion or have any questions for Mr. Meadwell or any of the presenters?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question I'd like to ask of Mr. Meadwell, if I could, please.
Yes, sir.
How do we go about notifying the public when we have items like this?
With that notification process is outlined through general statute as well as through our zoning ordinance. First is a public notice published in a newspaper of general circulation, which is the Davie Enterprise. That is required to be published for 2 consecutive weeks. We post the property, which is also required by statute and our ordinance. But we also send notifications out to those residents that are within 500 feet. So we do that's for the public hearing for this meeting here. But, we also do the mail notifications also for the planning board meeting. The notice or the news item that we put a brief description of what the planning board will hear in the newspaper as well. Both meetings are advertised or mentioned in the newspaper. Both meeting types are sent mail notices for the meeting to those adjoining property owners. The only difference is for your public hearing is it's an actual public notice, and the properties are posted.
We go well beyond what's required by the state.
Yes, sir. We go out 500 feet, which the general statute is just those adjoining property owners. So,
Thank you, Andrew. I do have a question for somebody from the company, if you don't mind. I said something about if that panel were broken, the stuff that would come spewing out of it. Is there any liquid at all in that panel?
No, it's cracked, actually. I've handled it numerous times. I keep it in my garage, so I've messed with it and knocked it over. I've been on site during construction myself, and have seen stacks of broken panels. So we don't wear anything specific. We follow OSHA protocol, so steel toe boots, long sleeves and pants, and then protective eyewear, hard hat. So nothing outside the norm of when you would construct, a commercial building or anything like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other input from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say this before we vote. I have, Davie County is one of the smallest landmass counties in the state of North Carolina. And we've been notified that there's another project coming in right behind this one. And my concern is that we are, and I certainly am a property rights person, but my concern is the number of acreage that we're just sewing up in solar panels in Davie County. And so I think there is question about the science. I don't think there's any question about that. But my main concern is just the number of projects that we're approving in Davie County. And so, as a matter of fact, after this is approved tonight, if it is approved, I'd like for you and Andrew to get me a summarization of the number of acres in Davie County that right now is under in terms of solar farms. So nothing has alleviated my concern about that tonight, Mr. Chairman. I just felt like I had to say that. Thank you, sir.
Any other comments?
I just wanted to say something to Dr. James and Miss Rebecca. I appreciate your passion and thank you for being here. And I just want to let you know, we practically beg people to come to meetings. This is an unusually well-attended meeting. When we had sales tax meetings last year, we advertised everywhere and we just couldn't get people to come. So I don't know what the answer to that is, but we have had meetings we practically beg people to attend and share their comments and share their opinions with us. So thank you for sharing your knowledge.
Okay. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I would make one more comment that I agree with what Commissioner Jones said on the amount of property that's being eaten up by the solar farms, but at the same time, it helps these farmers to keep the land, make it affordable for them to keep the land. instead of breaking up into residential subdivisions or industrial property. So it's a two-edged sword either way you go.
Yeah, and on that point, Mr. Meadwell, the land use plan we just adopted, this, and you said it's mixed use over there. So I think, as part of the request that Mr. Jones, or Commissioner Jones has made to Mr. Eller, that would be good to know of the mixed use, how much mixed use is out there that would be eligible for this solar panel, as we're developing a forward-looking plan here for these challenges. So, all right, any other comments? Okay, at this time, entertain a motion. We have three options to approve. First, on the rezoning, we have three options to approve, deny, or defer. So entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll entertain a motion to approve the zoning.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Do I have any discussion, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. Okay, the rezoning is approved, 5-0. The second question, or the second step, is on the conditions. The developer has been told they went over and beyond what they were required to do, but has anybody got any other ideas on that?
Mr. Chairman, I would ask the Mr. Meadwell and the owner to please provide berms in front of the fencing to put the landscaping on top of, so that residents do not have to see the opaque fence. I appreciate you doing that extra mile, but we've had a lot of concerns with people not wanting to ride by and see the fence. 5-foot tall berms would suffice with a 6-foot planting. Please.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, these conditions, they have to be mutually agreed upon. So I did talk with the applicant earlier tonight, and I don't know if they would like to discuss back with the board that requirement or not.
So you're suggesting a berm around the entire perimeter, or?
A berm parallel with Beecham and Baltimore Road, ma'am.
Okay. In addition to the opaque fence, or?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In addition to the double staggered rows of trees?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I guess what would be, you're saying that you didn't want the public to be able to view the opaque fence, so that,
The addition of the berm, when you're under site conditions and site construction, that wouldn't take a lot to build that berm. But you plant on top of that berm, you immediately hide that fence quicker
Right.
than waiting on the trees to grow. That's the
Okay.
only condition I would ask.
okay. Yep, we can do that. Yep.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I think Dr. Coles would like to say something. I know it's.
Well,
Ask, how high are the solar panels going to be off the ground, and how high are the trees, because you don't want too much shade coming over the solar panels.
That's true. So I think what the ordinance required was that within 2 years, the trees reach a height of 6 feet. So 6 feet, yep. So our intent was to satisfy that. In terms of the panels themselves, I think at full height, so they're going to be tracking. So the height will vary. And I want to say, I think at the highest, 91 inches from the level of grade.
How many feet is that?
Yeah, yeah, 7.5 feet.
Okay, and the trees go up 6?
Yes,
but that condition would not be an impediment to your 5 megawatts generation.
the berm.
Yeah.
So berms are very costly. So in construction, we would have to bring the dirt in from somewhere. So it's a costly undertaking, absolutely. But wanting to be good neighbors.
Understanding cost is cost, but cost notwithstanding, is it going to impact the generation of your solar farm?
In terms of shading,
Yeah. Yes.
I don't believe so. I think they should be set back far enough.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, at this time, entertain a motion to accept, deny, or defer the conditions plus the added condition from Commissioner Blakely.
Mr. Chairman, I would make that motion.
Motion to have a second.
Chairman, I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. That is approved. Thank you, everyone. Okay, next, we have several presentations, and we will, going on here. First, I would ask Sheriff Hartman to come forward for a special presentation.
Good evening. I think I need a permanent place on your agenda the way this is going lately. I have another retirement. With your consent, I'd like to present Chief Deputy Steve Moxley with his service weapon. Steve is probably going to be one of the most missed individuals in the sheriff's office when he leaves. He's only the second known individual to retire with a full 30 years service to Davie County. All of it at Davie County Sheriff's Office. But he's really more than that. Many of you know, a lot of you in the audience know, Steve ran our civil division and our courts for the last 15 years, 16 years. And that is a very complicated part of a sheriff's office that the public doesn't generally see, because you're dealing with taxes, money, kicking people out of houses, evictions, repossessions, all of those types of things. Steve has done that well. Myself and previous sheriffs never, ever had to worry about it. Never even thought about money being wrong because we knew Steve was doing it. I really am not sure how to replace him. I have really good people, and I have somebody already set to replace him, but he has extremely large shoes to fill. I am truly the most blessed sheriff in the state of North Carolina to have employees like Steve, and I don't think there's a sheriff out there that has somebody as good at the civil business as Steve was for us and for this county. Come on up, Steve. Present you with your service weapon, sir. Thank you for everything. If y'all will indulge me for just a minute.
Deputy Moxley, would you like to say a few words?
No, I'm not much on public speaking, but I can say that it has been a great 30 years with this amazing county, and I will miss it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay. Next, we have the school board with us this evening. We'll have a presentation, and we'll ask Superintendent Mr. Jeff Wallace to come forward.
Chairman Reniger, Mr. Eller, Commissioners, good evening. I would echo that Mr. Moxley's comments about serving this great county. I'm sure all of you understand that. So it's an honor for us to be here with you tonight, guests as well. Our reason to be here is to say, first of all, thank you. Thank you for your support for Davie County Schools. Thank you for what you do. Our next purpose is that we encourage and we hope that we can all continue to work together and regarding our educational needs for all of our children, because what we do in our schools and classrooms impacts everything that we do. Every reason that we're here tonight, it has a tremendous impact. The other reason we're here is to staff that you see with me is going to share basically a state of Davie County Schools and some exciting things and a few challenges. Davie County Schools' purpose is specifically learning, and that's what we're supposed to be about. And we're supposed to make learning in order to meet all the needs of children. 2018, there were 40 people that got together and spent, spent hours to develop a strategic plan for our school system. This plan was approved by the Board of Education in 2018, and it'll go, as you can see there, through 2023. This is an active or living document. We have already made some changes. We continue to annually review this with our staff, our administrators, and as we work through and make updates based upon the needs of our children. I want you to understand that the 40 people that I mentioned were students, they were parents, they were business people, there were clergy, and other leaders in this community that helped put this plan together. And this plan clearly articulates our mission, our vision, and our beliefs and core values is this is what we say we should do and will do in Davie County Schools in our classrooms every day. This plan represents the voices all across this county and specifically for about education. However, this work cannot be done in a silo. It will take the community support and leadership collaboration to meet the needs of all of our children. At this time, I'd like to introduce Ms. Jennifer Lyon. She's our Chief Academic Officer to share, and Mr. Anthony Davis, who's the Director of Career and Technology, Career and Technical Education, and Federal Programs. Ms. Lyon.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to present to you. As Chief Academic Officer, my main role is to make sure we're meeting the academic needs of all of our students. At the beginning of this school year, we rolled out a comprehensive plan called the Davie County Schools Instructional Framework. This framework provides common expectations and common terminology about how we teach students. Here on the screen on the right-hand side, you can see a circle graphic there. In that circle graphic, you see student learning in the center, and that's what we're all about. Around that, you see culture, because we know that culture is an important aspect both in the professional environment and the classroom environment, as it directly impacts student learning. This framework is aligned to a PLC's, Professional Learning Communities, model, and based on what we want our students to learn and be able to do, and how we respond when they do or do not learn. Professional learning communities are a focus in pre-K through 12th grade in all of our schools. It's an opportunity for educators to work collaboratively on a regular basis to achieve better results for the students that they serve. Specifically in our early grades, we are in our third year of a fifth-year partnership with the Medman Foundation called Davie Leads. The LEAD stands for Literacy Empowers All in Davie to Succeed. This is an initiative that focuses on two main goals: increasing kindergarten readiness and increasing third grade proficiency in reading. This grant at the pre-K level primarily focuses on building partnerships between our private pre-K facilities and our public facilities to build consistency in preparing pre-K students for kindergarten. The funds at the elementary level, basically primarily focused on kindergarten through third grade, have primarily focused on building teachers' capacity in instruction through strong professional development opportunities paired with a strong coaching model. We are extremely appreciative of our partnership with the Medman Foundation to provide these supports in our elementary schools and in our pre-K programs, both private and in our public schools. All teachers in all levels, pre-K through 12th grade, are working to improve their skills related to digital teaching and learning. But specifically, we have a state-funded grant called the Digital Learning Initiative Grant in our middle schools. The purpose of this grant has been to increase the number of middle school teachers trained in personalized and blended learning, as well as to provide technology to make this shift. Now, Anthony Davis is going to share more with you about our CTE and STEM programs.
As we talk about career and technical education and STEM, we really find it as an opportunity to help students figure out what they want to do. It doesn't matter what a child does after high school, whether they want to graduate with a high school diploma, whether they want to move on to the community college, whether they want to go to a four-year school. We just want to be able to provide opportunities for these students and help them figure out what they want to do when they leave. We do this starting in middle school with career exploration. That's very important to us. We try to get students involved in going into surveys and understanding what is out there in Davie County, especially here locally, just looking at everything that they can do and truly exploring those careers. We also have a very strong partnership with our STEM and our CTE departments at the high school, and they really help go through our students and help our students to figure out those things. So as we look at that, like our business advisory committee, that's something that's a strong partnership that we're very, very proud of. We bring in our business partners. They come in, they help us figure out what our needs are in the community, and that means a lot to us because one of the things that came up is as we look at blending STEM and CTE, is what are the needs of our community? What are the needs of our world? And one of the things we focused on was renewables. A project that we're very, very excited about is Project Sunburn. And that's where our students are actually participating in building a solar-powered race car to go out and race at the college level. That's something that most high schools do not do. In fact, if we're successful at it, Davie County High School will be the first high school in North Carolina to participate in that solar-powered race. And we're hoping to be able to do that in May at Cape Fear Community College. So we're really excited, and Cape Fear has partnered with us as well as Appalachian State University in helping us get that done. The other thing we try to do is to be responsive of our needs of our community. Through discussions and surveys, again, back to our business advisory group, we found out that there's a need for public safety, there's a need for medical in our community, and definitely having careers there. So one of the things that we're able to partner with Davidson County Community College and to be able to offer our EMT and Fire Academy. Fire Academy will start next school year. Our EMT actually has started now. We have students going through that, and when they graduate from high school, they can be certified both as a firefighter and as an emergency medical technician. So we're very excited about that. We just started back up our Camp Med. That was something that was a great opportunity, again, for us to reach out to community partners. We visited Davie Medical Center, Catawba College, visited their school, their sports medicine program, as well as their School of Nursing. We also got to visit Smith Grove Fire Department, and we're able to see different aspects of medical so that students can help figure out what they want to do in medicine, not just necessarily be a doctor or a nurse, but that there's other opportunities out there. There's also been a public push for financial literacy. And that's kind of statewide. And as we look at that next school year, starting with next year's freshmen, the freshmen of 2020, it'll be a requirement before they graduate that they're going to be required to take an economics and personal finance class, and that is legislated. But at Davie County High School, we're already taking strides on offering financial literacy to our students by offering through CTE a personal finance course. We also offer accounting, principles of business, entrepreneurship. So we have a lot of those opportunities, and we actually have a student-run credit union within the high school. So the students actually participate in banking, and they help other students open up checking accounts. They can actually talk with staff members about banking. So it's real life training that we're offering our students in there. We also are very proud of our career and technical student organizations, otherwise known as CTSOs. We offer them in various areas, whether it's business, we offer it in healthcare, marketing, but our biggest one is Skills USA. That's something we're very proud of. We have a big partnership with Ashley Furniture. They've come in and they've helped us out financially with that. And we actually had some students to participate just this past week in the regionals, and they finished very, very well, and we're excited to see what those students are going to be able to do when they go to states. So now to discuss human resources and our finance, I'm going to turn it over to Jenda Haynes, our Assistant Superintendent, and Clay Harris, our Chief Finance Officer.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you to the board. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . Every child deserves a strong educational foundation. You have probably heard of the Leandro case, which dates back to 1997. This Supreme Court case affirmed that every child has the right to a sound basic education, but we in Davie County want to be sure that every student has the education they need for a bright future, not just for themselves as individuals, but also for the prosperity of Davie County. Well, just recently, as in December 2019, the report from the Leandro case was released, and that report indicates 8 critical needs. You see the top 3 of them here as far as their findings or recommendations to ensure that strong education. Number 1 is a high-quality teacher in every classroom. Number 2, a well-prepared, effective principal in every school, and appropriate funding to meet the students' needs. These top 3 findings did not come as any surprise to us. Davie County Schools, we know that our staff has the greatest impact on student learning and the educational foundation, and that's exactly where the majority of our budget is spent. As you'll see here, 86% of that budget. We have 799 employees total. That makes the school system the second largest employer in the county. 490 of those are certified positions, so those are teachers, support staff, that includes counselors and administrators, and 309 classified. Those are the folks such as teacher assistants and our operations staff, such as bus drivers, cafeteria workers, and office support. But again, 86% of our budget goes to salaries and benefits for our employees. Clay's going to get a little more into details into how we fund those.
When you think about staffing, paying for our teachers and our school employees, they're funded out of 4 funding streams. The first is a state position allotment. Those are guaranteed allotments. That means that the state is going to pay their salary and their employer-matched benefits. And so that funding stream was set up so that all LEAs would have the opportunity to pursue highly qualified, experienced teachers. And so they fund us for 10-month classroom teachers, 10-month in instructional support personnel, our school building administrators, and our CTE. We talked about CTE. They fund the CTE and school building administrators based on months of employment. The other 2 roles are by their actual positions. Okay? The second funding stream is through state dollars, their dollar allotments. We get those allotments based on our ADM, and they are very specific in what we can use them for. So some examples of those would be our safety and SRO grant, our technology money that we get, our K-12 transportation is funded this way, our Davie County Early College, and our textbook funds all come through that funding. The third stream is our federal dollar allotments. They're very similar to our state dollar allotments, but they require very precise planning and budgeting for a specific purpose, such that I'm going to have X number of teachers and X number of teacher assistants that are funded through this source, and that's how they take a look at that. And so 3 examples of those would be our language acquisition, which would be our English as a second language learners, our Exceptional Children program, and our Title I program. Title I is our program set up for those students that are economically disadvantaged. The 4th stream is our local dollars that we receive primarily from this board through our interlocal agreement, and those are by far our most flexible. We tend to use those dollars, and we do use those dollars for the things that state and federal will not fund, such as our maintenance staff, our utilities we have to pay through those, our charter school payments, any county vehicle utilization that we use, such as our activity buses for extracurricular activities. They're all funded through this funding stream. Or areas where we may fall short. If you'll notice that, we'll use Exceptional Children, for example. We're funded at 12.75% of our ADM. Currently, we have 16% of our students identified as exceptional children. And on the other end of the spectrum, our intellectually and academically gifted students, we're funded at 4% of our ADM. Currently, we have 14% of our students identified as AIG eligible. So those differences have to be made up, and we make those up in local dollars. Okay? When we review these funding streams, it becomes a very continuous process for us. We want to maximize our dollars. So as we have individuals that move through roles, we may move where they're funded to make sure we're getting the biggest bang for our bucks. So I'll give you an example. We've got a teacher that's 20 years in a classroom. That's going to be one of our highest paid individuals in the school system. From an educator standpoint, we'll pay them out of a position allotment. We have a teacher that joins us this year. They're a brand-new teacher. We will typically pay them out of a dollar allotment or out of local dollars because they're going to be cheaper. We get the biggest bang for our buck that way. Make sense? So when I took a look at our classroom teachers, we fund about 409 classroom teachers in the district. So when we do all the math and everything else, 20 of those teachers have to be funded locally because we don't have the dollars in our other areas to fund those. Cost of personnel continues to grow year over year. As you'll see from the graphic, the cost of a brand new teacher in 2008 versus 2020 has grown 32%. Another way to say that would be our district was able to employ 26 brand new teachers in 2008 for $1 million. This year, that number is down to 19.7. While the decrease in buying power over the past 13 years, that's why we see the transition of teachers moving to those local dollars to have to pay for them. With that said, when we see salary increases that are provided for our teachers, they typically are pointed towards our newer teachers. And so because they want to make sure that we keep them motivated in the classroom. So with that, moving and paying those teachers those additional dollars, and as I said in the earlier slide, those are typically the ones we pay out of local. That increase impacts our local dollars to be able to fund those because they're mandated that the teachers get those dollars. So when we take a look at the last 6 years of teachers, our tenured teachers have grown by about 20%. So those are our teachers that are greater than 10 years. We've gone from about 50% to 60% of our teachers have worked with us for greater than 10 years. And so as those increases, as that number increases, we will potentially see higher and higher money that we'll need to put in from a local perspective to keep those salaries where they need to be based on bonuses or raises that the state has mandated for our teachers. Additional concerns. When we take a look at state retirement, the employee matching for retirement, over the last 13 years, that increase has been 152%, as you'll see through this graphic. And then when you take a look at our health care has gone up 54%, or $2,209 per employee over the last 13 years. With House Bill 226, the retirement and health care increases are forecasted to grow again next year. Health care at 5%, retirement at 8%. This growth will incrementally increase our local salary and benefit expenses by about $125,000. And that's if the federal and state allotments grow at the same rate. If they do not, our local impact will be even greater. The third area of concern is related to minimum wage and the related push to increase this minimum wage. With the state minimum wage hike for state employees in 2018 and a few of the LEAs already moving to a $15 an hour threshold, we continue to monitor this discussion. We fully support and fairly and adequately compensating our employees to drive the improvement in the minimum wage, $15, but the impact to the district will exceed $1 million if we move forward with that. Employees impacted would include our teacher assistants, our cafeteria staff, our bus drivers, custodians, and office personnel, along with others. This does not have an immediate impact on our planning and resource allocations at this point, but we continue to monitor this because as the discussions go on, it may very well impact where we go, and we try and plan for those changes and what the impact will be. Back to Jenna.
Okay, so as Clay has discussed with you, the rising cost of particularly retirement and benefits, as you can see, then due to the rising cost of employing staff, we have to make adjustments. We have to be proactive. And so I want to talk a little bit about some of the ways that we've done that over the last decade, and then more specifically in the last year. Because 86% of our budget is personnel, unfortunately, any financial adjustments typically means reducing staff. So most recently, last spring, we revisited again. We had to make additional cuts, and that meant 10 teaching positions spread across 10 different schools and 2 district positions. Please understand, Mr. Wallace shared a graphic with you at a prior meeting indicating that the staff has been reduced 11% since 2008. So I can say that our staff feels very lean and stretched in meeting the daily demands with these changes. You may wonder about that second bullet where it says the elimination of student-teacher housing, so I want to explain that a little bit. Through our partnership with the Mebane Foundation and Appalachian State, we have in the past hosted student teachers and provided housing to students from Appalachian. This proved to be a great way to recruit teachers and high-quality staff. We were actually able to go out and interview and screen and really select who we wanted to come and student teach here. Even with the staff reductions, we were able to hire about 25% of those students. So if you compare that to the cost of recruitment, we felt like it was a powerful thing to do, and it was something that we were known for or have been known for throughout the state. However, last spring, as we looked at budget, we reached a point that we had to cut this program. I will tell you, it is already impacting our numbers of student teachers. In the past, we've been able to host about 16 student teachers per year, and this year we're hosting 4. So you see that decline. Again, unfortunately, this was a necessary adjustment. We've also, you'll see the next bullet there, we have decreased mentoring cost as well as professional development. Again, these are changes and decisions we've made reluctantly, but do want to think about long-term cost to that. Now, as far as what are we doing to recruit and maintain under these circumstances? First of all, I want to talk with you briefly about our vacancy data. Each year, the HR department completes a vacancy report that's required by the state. It's required for all districts. Davie County has been extremely fortunate that we have been able to fill all of our teaching positions by the first day of school. I will tell you this is not the case in other districts. There are other districts, even neighboring districts, that start the school year with double-digit vacancies, and we have been very fortunate. I have to think that's because we are doing a good job to attract them. The culture, the students that we serve, the families, the value of education, we have a lot of positive things that we really try to sell to those that we're trying to recruit here. But college education programs have declined 30 to 40%. And as the teacher shortage worsens, that is going to be a challenge as we continue to recruit and maintain qualified staff. The next piece on here is our attrition rate. Again, this is an annual report that we do from the HR department. This is the rate of teachers who are leaving the teaching position for any reason. So it could be retirees. It gets broken down for all of the reasons. Our most recent attrition rate was 11.94%, so hold that number, 11.94%. This is higher than the state average of 8.06, and it's higher than the average for our Piedmont Triad region, which was 7.7. We believe that that is related to teacher supplements and losing our teachers to larger counties. So if you take a look at the graphic there, that teal box there beside of you, you'll see that Davie County supplement is 5.5% for certified staff. And we've included our surrounding counties around us. So we are tied with Yadkin County at the bottom as the lowest in our area. If you work your way up, you'll see Davidson is 6.125%. Idle is 6.25%. Idle also has a supplement for their classified employees. Lexington City is 8.5%, and then Winston-Salem is at the top, which goes from 7.5 to 15.5%. You may notice there are a couple of missing counties or districts there. Rowan is not included, specifically because they use a flat rate versus a percentage for their supplements. They also have more flexibility as a restart district, but I can tell you in the past their supplement has been between 5.7 and 6.7. Thomasville City also has a flat rate, and I can tell you that their lowest supplement is higher than our average supplement. So just for comparison. I'll also add that Winston-Salem Forsyth County will be voting on a quarter-cent sales tax to support another increase in teacher supplements. As an HR person in Davie County, that is a concern to me because we already lose approximately 20 teachers per year who are going to another district to teach. The question? Sure.
The Winston-Salem Forsyth, I find that very interesting, knowing nothing other than it's a scale. I mean, what does that scale represent in terms of who's getting 7.5, who's getting 15.5 in terms? I mean, and you may or may not know that. If you don't, I would like to have that. I'd like to hear that because that may be some creative way we could look at. Trying to help you guys.
Right. I can pull out that information if you can give me a minute to dig in just a second.
No. You finish, and then you can get it to me later. That's okay.
But getting back to the point, my concern is if that passes and we see that increase in Winston-Salem Forsyth County, my concern is that it will encourage our good Davie County teachers to potentially drive across the river, and that's not what we want to happen. Most of the student requests that we have, so students who request to leave Davie County to go to Winston-Salem Forsyth County, it's because a parent is employed by Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools. Now, with this in mind, we have work to do. We have to focus on recruiting. We go to typically 4 to 5 colleges and universities as far as going to their job fairs. Again, we try to really focus on what makes Davie County a great place to work. The culture, the students, the families that we serve, the support of the community, the location, everything that, again, we feel like is positive about Davie County. Last year, we also started a course, or actually 2 courses at Davie High School called Teaching as a Profession. These courses are meant to encourage students who are interested in teaching, and they were started through the iTeach grant. Students can earn college credit, but it's our way of hopefully building a pipeline of students going to college and hopefully coming back home to Davie County to teach. So it's a way to grow our own. Other things that we're doing to recruit and maintain our teaching staff is really trying to invest in them. As Jen and Anthony talked about grants and programs that we're actively seeking for professional development, whether that's Davie Leads or Digital Teaching and Learning or the Golden Leaf grant that we just finished. As part of this, we also recognize the value of the coaching structure. Of professional coaching, having someone to observe, to provide feedback, to model, and to support improvement, just as a professional athlete has. So over the last several years, we have prioritized our support positions as instructional coaches. Likewise, we want to invest in our principals and provide them coaching for their leadership development. These things tie directly back to the Leandro case, and recognizing that effective teachers and principals are critical in the success of students, so that as our staff grows and improves, so will our students. I will look that up for you.
The infographic I shared with you in January is here on the screen, and what that is a snapshot of basically of our performance in some regard. But you can also see that these a list of learning opportunities for our students that go beyond the classroom. As you've heard tonight, mentioned quite a few businesses, and the days of sitting in rows and opening up textbooks are gone, and rightfully so. Most of you are business owners, and you understand that that's important to have our kids with hands-on experience. And it takes others, it takes you all, it takes the group here, but it takes many other folks, and such as our business group has been mentioned as well. Our local foundations are very supportive of our education also. As I mentioned earlier, our purpose is to educate children. That's our primary means to take care of the children. We're grateful that we live in a community that supports what you're going to hear in a few moments from Ms. McManamy is about Ignite Davie, where we're investing in education. Also, we're thankful that we have the support of our commissioners and the strong community relationships that is mentioned. We're thankful that for you, that you'll serve as a leader. We also have a few challenges that's mentioned, has been mentioned here tonight. That's recruiting and retaining. And there's one number I want you to look at there, if you will, is that out of the 20 teachers that leave us on an annual basis, approximately 45% of those leave for Forsyth County. So we're losing 8 to 9 a year to Forsyth County, and specifically, you've already mentioned we saw the supplement, and that's one of the primary reasons. Another challenge for us is to maintain flexible facilities for technology and to meet the ever-changing needs of our students. We are also, again, this is a holistic, more of a comprehensive approach. It's not just to schools. But as any of you well know, and realtors and business owners, that one of the primary things that people ask for when looking at Davie County is the situation of your schools. So we have to maintain, we have to continue to work together to attract, to be able to perform, and our facilities have to be flexible and up to date, and we want to create a safe and positive culture. We have given you a mouthful, but I want you to hear me loud and clear that we work hard. I'm very proud of this staff, your teachers, and we're very pleased, and thank you again for your support, and I'll be glad to take any questions if you have any.
Any questions for Superintendent Wallace and his staff? Well, this is a comment, not a question. I look out there, I see the past, counting Superintendent Wallace, the past 4 superintendents. You'd stand up, Mr. Potts, Dr. Steed, and Dr. Hartness is back down in the back row, and we've had tremendous leadership from these guys, and we owe them a debt of gratitude. And also, there's several people in the school board that's here. Mr. Potts, you just keep standing. And then I see Clint back there and Lori. Stand up. I can't see you. And well, yeah. I thought, okay. David Carroll. Yeah. Colonel Hales, Mr. Carroll, where you? Okay. Oh, okay. All right. So again, thank you for all your leadership and what you do. So, all right. So does anybody have any questions for Superintendent Wallace?
I don't have a question. I'll just tell you this. My precious bride, Gwen, is in your classrooms about 3 days a week on average, and I can't describe how blessed she is by the kids. She's primarily preschool through 3rd grade, and she's just blessed by your staff and by the families. And so thank you for taking care of her.
Well, I can assure you, if she'd like to work 5 days a week, I've watched her work. She's a natural. And I told her that last time we talked, if I recall correctly, but she's good. And we appreciate people like that. And again, that's reflective of the people we need. And that doesn't just happen. I mentioned earlier, we can't operate in a silo. It takes everyone. It takes us all to make sure this county stays attractive. It's a very powerful thing to talk about our attrition rate being higher than the state or region, but every classroom had a certified staff member in it at the beginning of August. That's one of our goals in the strategic plan. That speaks volumes of this group, but it speaks volumes of who we are, and that's strong part of my message tonight. So we're very thankful. Commissioner Jones will get you that information too.
Oh, thank
Yes, sir.
I just want to say I am especially excited about the EMT and Fire Academy. And Mr. Davis, I know you've had a lot to do with that. And hopefully a lot of those students will understand the importance of them volunteering and working in this county and that aspect. But thank you for all your work you've done on that.
And Commissioner Finney, that's another example of us needing to be flexible. And we were able to be flexible because of the Davis Community College staff and our local fire departments and things that are going to be willing to work with us as well. Again, it's not just what happens in the classroom. That's the community college and it's our local fire departments. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right.
Thank you for
presenting.
much.
Absolutely.
All right, well, that segues very nicely into the next presentation, which is a very exciting program, Ignite Davie. So, Mr. Eller, you want to kick that off for us?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. So we've been talking about this a lot, and I'm finally happy to see that come to pass. Many great partners have been involved with this initiative, and also through the support of the county commissioners, making a pledge over the next 5 years to be able to achieve this. We've heard from several counties that are very jealous of what we're trying to achieve here. And we thank all the partners that have been involved with this. We thank the board for their collective support. And we're looking forward to hearing from Ms. McManamy tonight. I think the important thing to note is when we look at the research regarding our children and how to keep them here in Davie County and show them what career options are available, the research has shown us that if a child's able to be educated in their local community, they're more willing to find employment there. And so through this program, it's really a K-14 program to allow our students in Davie County who graduate with this upcoming class to be able to have an opportunity over the next 3 years either to get an associate's or certificate type degree or to get a 2-year educational option before going to a 4-year institution. And our hope is this will be value added for the parents and families of Davie County because of the leadership of the committee who spearheaded this, but also through support of individuals like yourself. So we applaud you for taking the initiative to get us this far. So thank you very much. Ms. McManamy, I don't want to steal any of your thunder.
I'm all done now, right? Well, thank you all very much for letting me be here tonight to talk to you about Ignite Davie. I think a lot of people have heard the phrase or the term, but may not know a lot of the particulars. So I'm just going to touch on those real briefly. Ignite Davie is our college promise program that invests in the residents of Davie County. And what that means is that it pays tuition and fees with a stipend for books for full-time attendance at DCCC. And our students can pursue a certificate, a diploma, or an associate's or transfer program degree. It's starting with the class of 2020. That's this year's senior class. So we are seeing a whole lot of activity happening right now as our students are gearing up for taking advantage of this program. Ignite Davie is special because it is not based on academic merit and it is not based on financial need. It is based on, it's place-based. It's based on living here and going to school here. And so that makes it a little bit unique to many of the other college promise programs that you see. This slide shows the investment that we're making and the funding that our students will receive, and it is, again, based on how long they've lived in the county and their education. It rewards the students and the families who have been here in Davie County the longest, as they have contributed significantly to our local economy and the overall economic vitality of Davie County. Ignite Davie started off with the help of these organizations. It is a true community collaboration, and it was launched by all of these folks, organizations and individuals coming together and working together to try and find a way to ensure that our students were better prepared for 21st century careers by providing them with the opportunity to gain in-demand training and skills. So we've been working together since January of 2019, and since that time, only a little over a year, we have created this College Promise program and made significant donations to get the $3 million endowment established. And then we launched this program to the community and our students. So it was a very busy year. Our program goals, they kind of, obviously right here, they encompass a lot of different things. And what brought us to these goals were the fact that Ignite Davie is not just an educational initiative. It's a workforce initiative and it's an economic development initiative. And it's also a significant investment in our community. And so with those premises in mind, this is how we arrived at some of our program goals. First and foremost, we are looking to increase the post-secondary attainment and completion rates of our students. We want to strengthen our workforce and ensure alignment with business and industry needs. We want to improve our high school graduation rates. We want to attract young families to Davie County. We want them living here because we need them not only buying houses and being a part of our economy, but we want them working here. We want to educate those students here. We want to create a competitive advantage for our businesses. And lastly, we want to work to increase our tax base for Davie County. A lot of folks have asked us why a College Promise program? Well, these are some pretty basic premises that are out really nationwide, and they very much pertain to us as well. But we know that right now, today, more than 65% of the jobs require post-secondary education and training beyond high school. And that the number one concern of business and industry is workforce, and they're facing a significant shortage of workers. 5 million is estimated. We also know that the cost of college has increased considerably, 400% in the last 30 years, while the median household income has stayed flat. And so now we have some significant student debt. And lastly, we just know that post-secondary education is going to be an essential prerequisite to participate in the labor market. And that we know that increasing the skills of our individuals and our workforce is going to benefit the entire community. So we took those broad premises, if you will, that you hear a lot actually about in the news and in the newspapers and articles. Everybody's talking about what's needed for competing in the workforce and the job shortages. Well, then we took a look at Davie County, and one of the most compelling things that we saw that really kind of generated our interest in this was the post-secondary education rate. So we're good. We've got over 50% are starting some sort of secondary education, but we only have about a third that are completing it. So we know they need more education. We know that they need to get some better skills, but we're not getting there. So there's a little bit of a disconnect, and that's where Ignite Davie comes in, because we're providing a path for our students to continue their education, again, beyond high school, so that they can gain those necessary skills to be competitive in the labor market. And we know that obviously today's students are tomorrow's workforce, and so we need them to be ready. That's important. And we know that getting that right level of education means that they can get a better job, and they can have higher earnings, which translates into an increased standard of living and a better quality of life. So these things are going to matter, for sure. This is truly one of my favorite slides ever. It is a really great way to highlight the importance of talking about the cost of higher education and student debt. This is a slide that shows not a lot of teeny tiny little print, but I'll tell you right now that it is showing you the cost of tuition and fees for 2 years at school, just 2 years. All those rates that you see for the other universities and schools as published on their websites. So that's really compelling. I mean, those are some staggering rates. That is not including books. It is not room and board, and no, it is not a meal plan. So that's pretty amazing when you look at that. Again, it's just 2 years, and I tell you, when I have had the opportunity to present this to our high school students, they are stunned. And they should be. And again, it's just 2 years. So I look at this, and I do like to share this because I think it's a really great opportunity for starting that conversation about how much it costs to go to school and just how much our students can save by going to DCCC. And with Ignite Davie, it's essentially no cost. So now, DCCC is our partner in this program, and it is one of the best community colleges in our state. And it's changing and growing constantly, and they offer a tremendous amount of different kinds of programs for our students to pursue that's going to prepare them for a career of the future. And there are several short-term credentials that students can earn a certificate maybe in just a few months. And then there are several short-term workforce pathways, the Career in a Year program, and there are several of those. And then lastly, and obviously, students can choose to pursue up to a 2-year associate's degree or transfer degree, whether they're going to go straight into a career or perhaps choose to go on to a 4-year school and beyond. So there's really a wide range of what our students can do at DCCC, and we're really proud of that. This has been an exciting year for us as we have rolled this out to our senior class predominantly and getting everybody acclimated with what the process is to be able to take advantage of this program. As of last Friday, we had 110 seniors who have completed the application for Ignite Davie, and that represents about 25% of the senior class. And so we are really proud of that. It means that this is resonating. We have struck a chord in our community and with our students, and so we're pretty excited about how many students are taking the necessary steps to potentially take advantage of this. And while we don't know how many of them will definitively go on to DCCC, we feel pretty darn confident that we're going to see a tremendous increase in enrollment this fall. Since the public launch back in the fall, which kind of coincided with the beginning of school, we've had the high school and counselors and DCCC staff have been really working very tirelessly with all of our seniors, meeting with them individually to make sure that they know about this program so that they can take advantage of it. And we had a meeting with them recently, and this was really kind of exciting to hear. Well, they told us that not only do they have tremendous interest in our Ignite Davie program, but they're seeing a tremendous increase in their students just wanting to know more about going to college, that this has had a broader impact than we would have ever thought. And so these students are asking questions. They want to know different opportunities, and we kind of feel like this got the conversation starting in a different way. And so we're pretty excited about that. One of the pieces that we're finally kind of getting to the point where we get to really start working on is our career connections. Because again, we just got this started in the fall, and so we really focused on fundraising and educating our students about the program. But a really important part of this program, once the students are enrolled in DCCC, is the career connections. And I think that it's super important because it's going to kind of bring the program full circle back to our economic vitality of our community. Because once a student is in DCCC, they're going to be partnered with local business and industry. We want to put them on site with these folks, and we want to give them the opportunity for them to have some work readiness training, some career exposure, and some employment opportunities that align with the student's academic pursuits and career choice. So these connections are going to be things like internships, they're going to be job shadowing, they're going to be other work-based learnings, tours, that type of thing. We really want to give these students an opportunity to see firsthand what their career choice is going to look like. And what I think is great is that, it's a good opportunity for our employers to also make an impression on our students before they're done with their academics and before they're out in the workforce. So this is a way for them to potentially cultivate some new employees coming through the ranks. And our companies are very excited about this. I've had the opportunity to speak with several of them about participating in the Career Connections, and now I'm working with folks at DCCC, and we're starting to talk about what that program is going to look like and what are the different, based on the different career paths and academic paths, what types of career exploration and the like, and career connections are going to make the most sense. So we're pretty excited about that. And, we really want, one of our goals is we want more Davie County residents working for Davie County employers. And we think that the Career Connections is showing our business community that we take workforce very seriously. And that we're working on creating our own talent pipeline to meet their needs. And it's going to meet the needs of our students as well. This actually needs to be updated, but this is showing you how far we've come with our fundraising efforts. As I mentioned before, we have established that we need to reach a $3 million fundraising goal to have Ignite Davie available for future generations, and I'm happy to say that as of right now, we are at $1.5 million. And so it's, this is an extraordinary promise that we're making, and we are very proud of what we've done so far. As we continue the fundraising and the community awareness efforts in the program, we're really starting to see that this is really getting big. This is going to go someplace in our community beyond providing a scholarship for education. It is really becoming an integral part of our community. People want to get involved, and they want to help, whether it's through financial donations or volunteering. And honestly, we are so grateful for the interest that we're getting. I'm happy to say that We have actually started a few new committees based on the volunteers that have come forward and said, we want to help, we want to make this a success, and we want to see it grow. And so we now have a special events committee, and we have a PR and marketing committee, and it's made up of volunteers. And again, we're blessed. This is the Davie County way. People want to get involved, and people understand what we're doing here is going to make a tremendous impact, not just on our students, but for everyone. So right now, fundraising is our number one priority, and because we need to get to that $3 million goal. And it's what's going to allow us to fund this program into perpetuity. And so our message to the community is this: we need you to make Ignite Davie a success for future generations. Today it is benefiting our high school students, but we're also looking ahead to ensure that it will benefit today's elementary students as well. So please consider yourself asked. We know, gotta do it. And we want you to know that any contribution is greatly appreciated and will go a long way to making a difference in getting this program to where it needs to be for our community. What does ultimate success look like? Number one, right? We reached that $3 million endowment to ensure that Ignite Davie, again, is available in perpetuity. We have more local jobs filled by Davie County residents. We'd like to see more of our students who are on that 4-year track obtain a 2-year transfer degree at DCCC. We know that that's going to be a tremendous savings to them and their families, and we hope to see that grow. And then we also want to see a demographic shift in our young families. We have an aged community, and we need to draw in more young families with children. And so we're hoping to see that as people become more aware of not only this fabulous program, but all the things we just heard from Superintendent Wallace. We have fantastic schools here, and we feel like Ignite Davie is complementing that. We have a fantastic community college. So we have a lot, and these are great assets for us to be offering to families that are looking to live in this area. And so we're hoping that we will see a significant change in the number of young families here. So we know that with Ignite Davie, what we've really started to learn recently is that we have ignited a conversation about college and careers. And there is an interesting momentum that is building in this community as we create a college-going mindset. And we think that's going to have a pretty profound impact, not only on our students, but on our entire community, especially as we start to see our students completing their education and getting out into the workforce and becoming a part of the economic engine of Davie County. So, and they're going to contribute to our local economy. So this is Ignite Davie, and giving together, we want to ignite our future. So I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about this tonight. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Carolyn? I just want to say right quick, I know we're getting long here, but to me this is very exciting. It's also amazing from concept to fruition. This thing started in January of 2019, and 3 people really stepped up and got us to where we're at, and that's Carolyn, Jane Simpson, and Carol Moser. We said we were going to launch this thing in the fall of 19. Thought that was aggressive, but they stepped up and did that, and they should be commended, so thank you very much.
Are we ready? Let's do it.
Yeah, I think we're going to get our picture made with a giant check.
Yes,
and,
absolutely, and a sincere thank you for the support of Ignite Davie. Everybody else is So one of the things we've been doing is we've been getting donations in the community. We like to take photographs of our donors with our big fabulous check. And then you'll start seeing yard signs. Hopefully you've seen a lot of those. I would love for you to get out of the way. Let's say we support Ignite Davie. Oh, yeah, do the right one, sorry. No, this is your thing. They don't do that one. No. But I'll take one. So thank you very much for your support and Thank you very much. The last thing I'll say is, as you see this in the community, as you drive around, this means that the people that have these in their yards or their businesses that are financially supported Ignite Davie. So if you want one of these fabulous signs, I am happy to help you get one. Thank you very much.
All right, appreciate that presentation. So again, I know we're great information this evening, but we're getting long, so yeah.
There's an Ignite Davie resolution, Mr. Chairman, regarding the pledge. It's on the agenda.
All right. Would you like to read that, or?
Page 130.
Whereas the soaring cost of college tuition prevents many students from furthering their education, and whereas many students in post-secondary education incur substantial student loan debt, and whereas Ignite Davie is an educational initiative to raise the educational attainment levels of Davie County residents by providing college access through tuition assistance for high school graduates, and whereas Ignite Davie will strengthen Davie County's commitment to education and ensure a highly skilled workforce, and whereas Ignite Davie will open doors to educational access and success, allowing all Davie County students the opportunity to develop their talents and reach their potential. And whereas Ignite Davie is an investment in our children's future that will launch them into independent adulthood with successful careers and the promise of a bright, prosperous future. And whereas some of Ignite Davie's goals and objectives are to improve high school graduation rates, create K-14 college options for seniors graduating high school, increase post-secondary educational attainment, elevate the standard of living of residents, provide a talent pipeline to support business and industry, and attract young families to Davie County. And whereas to benefit current and future dependents of Davie County government employees, will now offer payroll deduction opportunities available for staff to voluntarily support this program should they wish to do so. And whereas the Davie County Board of Commissioners have expressed their support of Ignite Davie through this pledge acknowledged tonight to create the program and assist with its sustainability for the future. And now therefore it be resolved that the Davie County Board of Commissioners hereby declare the month of March 2020 as Ignite Davie Month, positioning Davie County for future generations of children to obtain high-demand, high-paying careers found here in our own community, furthering positioning Davie County as a highly desirable place to live and work, adopted this day tonight, March 2nd, 2020.
All right. Someone like to make that motion approving the resolution?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion to approve the resolution.
Have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the resolution, raise your hand. That is approved. Great calls. Thank you. All right. Now we will move to the public comment period. All right. We will move to the consent agenda. Trust you've all had a chance to look at that. Any questions or comments?
We got a county manager's report.
Oh, sorry.
I'll defer my report tonight, Mr. Chairman, given we're running late. I'm good with that. I'll get back next month.
Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as labeled.
Second.
Okay. Any comments or discussion? I would just ask that on item E5, the resolution to assist with the cleanup at River Park at Coolamy, I support that, but that is contingent on Rowan County commissioners passing a resolution to give us, to contribute to that, and I would like to see their funds come in before we write our check. I'm sure it's going to, but okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, we have a motion, a second. All in favor, raise your hand. That is approved. Thank you. All right, next we go to old business. Any old business to come before us this evening? Seeing none, we'll move to new business, and the first item is the Farmington Road construction. I'll call on Mr. Eller.
Mr. Chairman, I know we talked about this in December and going through several steps as it relates to LGC approval regarding this, but I'll recap what we talked about in December a little bit, so we just have some talking points here so that everyone can catch up. So as you may recall, a few weeks ago, we initially went out for bids, and those bids came in well above where we anticipated, so we went out, back out to the market for that. At that time, the proposed project was hovering around $11 million. We have gone back out for bid. Those bids were received, and the lowest responsible bidder was named, which is Shilco. We have talked about that at prior meetings. We've been able to value engineer the amount of even those bids down now to about $7.1 million, and that is just from where we started is just phenomenal. Some things that we've talked about with the board before is the cost of renovation versus building a new facility. We've done some cost-benefit analysis of that and some cost avoidance. I'll have Ms. West come up and talk about those in just a minute, as she has in the past. Based on our feedback from the board, that's the most economical approach. It's also based on our facility space needs study. In those studies, depending on what property you looked at, it would cost at least $20 million plus for the two largest apartments that we have to occupy a site. So delaying the project only costs us more later, and that's what we're seeing with our business construction every year, that we lose. The cost is much more later. So we talked to you about our facility space needs study in the past, and ignoring our capital pressures that we're facing, so trying to get ahead of that so we don't pay more later. The lease agreement proposed is under the market value. I think you'll recall in 2017, before my arrival, you had the Spicegood Group do a market rate assessment for you, and I think at that time in 2017, the market race or lease rate was, I think, between $8 to $10. Mr. Vogler, I think you helped take the lead on that at the time.
That's correct.
And so this is significantly below that amount as far as the lease agreement that we've already taken action with. But now here we are looking to sign this contract with Shilco at this time. As we've talked about in the past, this is the best site that suits us to date. We have found that it can house our two largest apartments. It has a square footage that we need. We've got a great lease rate. We've reassessed the results of that facility space needs study. We've talked about that at your work session. We've also talked about that in the capital improvement planning process. We did look at many options before we identified that site and tried to make those work, but the lease rates were just not manageable for us. We know that we have our sheriff in several locations and also our health and human services folks, and this gives us a chance to pull those folks together. We've identified operational maintenance efficiencies to be gained because of that. There's going to be obviously no loss of services, and as our sheriff has stated, that other than gun permits, walk-ins won't be affected because they're assigned to zones and do community policing. And so they'll still have the presence at the courthouse. But we also, as I said, we looked in some other locations, and this one just seemed to suit us the best based on the lease rate and based on the cost now of renovation compared to where we started. So we've also looked at other places. We've had people ask us about the old hospital site, and initially we had looked at that site to try to renovate. We had a couple of engineers look at that site, and we were not able, due to the cost of abatement and upfit, to be able to make that work for us. In addition to that, the Davidson Community College since that time has also found that that is also the case. So they've also vacated the former hospital site and now have programs back at their campus across from the former high school because of the cost of renovation at that site. That is kind of when we started looking at other options at that point. So with that, we think going back out to bid was the right move, given where we are now from where we started. We know that the new proposed site is about 4.7 miles from the courthouse. Right north of Seine Road is the geographic center of the county, and we're even closer at the corner of Farmington Road there, with good access to I-40, and we've done that traffic study, as you recall, a few months ago as well. So we feel like now we're at the point, since compared to where we started and where we are now, to move forward with engaging Shellco with this process. So I know it's been several months we've talked about this, and this would be, the final step in that process. So with that, I'll turn it over to the board. Ms. West, you want to come and talk about the cost savings that we've talked about in the past?
Absolutely. Attached to the agenda item in your packet is the cost avoidance spreadsheet. As we've discussed before, delaying projects, construction projects, we've talked with architects and engineers and people in the construction industry. Those costs go up anywhere from 5 to 10%. Our experience has been it's more like 10%. So every time we delay, it becomes more and more expensive. We had some cost estimates just to build a health and human services building. That's just half of the people that we would house as this Farmington Road facility, and that was about $14 million, and that was a couple years ago. That was about 2 or 3 years ago. We know the costs of some recently constructed law enforcement facilities in surrounding counties, and you're looking that it's going to be at least $17 to $20 million to build something of that sort for our public safety. If you look at the cost avoidance, we would be saving between $15 and $25 million by leasing the space. As you recall, we have presented the lease at a public hearing back in August. This board ultimately approved it in December. We've already submitted the lease agreement to the Local Government Commission last year, and they've approved it. So just give you a timeline where we are. We're on the Local Government Commission's agenda for their meeting tomorrow for the financing for this project. We've bundled some other things in with this project to obtain financing to upfit this lease space. So we're on their agenda for tomorrow. But I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, we also have Mr. Blackwelder, who helped lead this project with Mr. Fuller's partnership. John Fuller's our as you know, our hometown partner here, and has very much worked with us as well and helped us along the way. So any of us will strive to take any questions if you have them.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Eller, Ms. West, or Mr. Blackwelder, or Mr. Fuller? Just a comment, I want to thank Shellco and Mr. Fuller, Mr. Blackwelder, for all the engineering that was done to get to this number. From where we started to where we're at now is amazing. Not to repeat what John said, but it is true. So thank you for all the effort there. We are appreciative of that. Makes this financially viable, in my opinion, very viable. Any other comments?
I appreciate everything that everybody's done, and I understand all the things that you were saying. But of course, I'm sure I'm still the Lone Ranger holdout, that my heart is with these people who utilize Health and Human Services. And it is just very heartbreaking to me to know that we're moving the services to that location. But I do thank all of you for all that you've done. But I'm just still there, and I'm still at buying's better than leasing, because that's just what's in my brain. So
Well, I hear your point on buying versus leasing, but in this case, you're talking about it would be multiple years before we could buy. And so this accelerates the process, and gets these two critical departments in some space that's more efficient. So, from that perspective, I hear you, but I think this is a good deal for the county from an economic perspective.
Just to clarify one thing, and John, you probably would do this. Wyvetti and Cape Fear would transport to that facility, right?
Correct. Cape Fear being a Medicaid transportation provider, any Medicaid recipient who's eligible for Medicaid transportation would automatically be going to that site. And Wyvetti, as we go in, we have started conversations with Wyvetti, and as we go into the budget process, we continue to do that.
Mr. Eller, that location is actually closer to the geographical center of the county than where the two offices are now. We have the center of the county is just south of 158 there on Foster Dairy Road, which would make it more equitable for everybody in the county to be able to go to it instead of coming to Moxville, which is almost 5 miles farther away.
All right, any other questions, comments? All right, seeing none, we have a contract before us to approve or not. So I would entertain a motion to approve as presented.
I'd make the motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second the motion to approve.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. 4, all opposed. That passes 4-1. Okay, thank you for all the work. Okay, next we have the Lake Louise Park Agreement, and I'll call on Mr. Eller.
Mr. Chairman, I'll quickly run through this, and Mr. Moore is going to come up. He's got a few quick comments about how this connects to the parks master plan. So, Paul, if you want to come on up while I read this. As you've heard, we've already heard from Beth and Joel Edwards tonight. I know that he continues to speak with anyone that has reached out to him regarding this option and vision that both of them have. I know that we had allocated, set aside during the budget process for this already, but because Mr. Moore's working on a, we'll call it a pedestrian, bicycle, and greenway plan, how would this connect to that given what our citizens have stated and also what was passed in the comprehensive plan? So I know we're running late, so I've asked Paul to be very brief in his comments, but if you would just state how this complements our plan.
Right, so in the Comprehensive Park and Recreation Master Plan that was approved by Board of Commissioners in 2013, there are essentially 5 goals which relate to this project as far as it being a partnership investment, a public-private partnership investment. Goal 1 is the affirmation that Parks and Recreation is important in this county. It's the first step in growing parks and recreation facilities and programs and includes a substantial county buy-in from the highest of level of elected officials. Since 2016, our department has sought to educate the residents in this process that it is important that Parks and Recreation is important through the health and wellness, which ultimately ties to enhancing the quality and improving the quality of life of our citizens. Goal 2. So this essentially checks the box there. Goal 2, continue expanding the structure of parks and recreation. So what do we mean by that? A successful department can be expanded as the county's park system expands in the future. We have an opportunity to invest in a public-private partnership that would gain us another quasi-model park with the immediate programming capabilities and future phase facilities while providing opportunities for the community to enhance and improve their quality of life. Goal 3, strengthen the new branding initiative for the county recreation and parks. So some of our initial county investment goes toward a brand that we are initializing in, as far as wayfinding signage. So the wayfinding that we would install incorporates what the recent wayfinding we just installed at the new park. So if if in the future this park does become a full county park, there's infrastructure in place that we won't have to pay for later in the future. Goal number 4, begin a countywide greenway connectivity plan. We started that December 2019. We just spent last Friday with our site visit meeting, going all over this county looking at connectivity. This provides another checkbox looking at other area interest in this county. So this plan would look to connect to this park as another potential interest. And lastly, goal number 8, sustain a county initiative for attaining future open space and parkland. Part of this action strategy is for the county to identify potential open space and parklands within the county and work with the Board of Commissioners in developing a strategy of land acquisition in key and or opportunistic areas such as this, and looking at ways to look at public-private partnership and using those dollars more efficiently. Number 2, Davie County is moving with purpose. Part of this is your strategic plan. It is the purpose that is driving this new vision and new ideas such as a public-private partnership. In addition to achieving the goals which within the adopted county strategic plan, specific to recreation parks is quality of life and place. And what that goal is in our strategic plan is partner with citizens and stakeholders within our community to create environmental, arts, cultural, and civic recreation opportunities that contribute to the health and well-being of our community. This partnership does that. It creates recreational opportunities for residents to enrich their quality of life by investing and promoting in public community gathering spaces, which is a metric of ours. Promote recreational activities and programming. That is a metric of ours, as well as promoting citizenship, all metrics of Davie County Recreation and Parks under the strategic plan. And lastly, without question, both of our department and our county mission and vision speak as a key role in achieving the success of any partnership investment. To excerpt our own mission, it is our purpose to enrich the quality of life. We do this in part by offering exceptional recreation experiences through a diverse system of program events, parks, and cultural resources. Our vision places a label to us to be vibrant, viable, innovative, and committed to giving our community the achievement and high quality of life. This opportunity partnership allows us to check that box. And finally, I believe it's important to note that the county's adopted mission and vision also speaks to offering citizens the opportunity to both enhance and improve their quality of life. The value of offering parks and recreation are essential elements if we are truly to measure quality of life for its citizens, and must give our department and the county leadership an insatiable desire to ensure that we are keepers of our words and our actions.
Paul's a little bit excited about parks, if you couldn't tell. Paul, one thing I need to say, because we're prepping for, obviously, our new park, and he's done a great job. He's also done a great job at partnering with not only our community centers, our river park, but also our stakeholders. So while you're up here, I just wanted to say that, Paul. So thank you.
Okay, so before us we have a 5-year agreement to provide for $50,000 a year in maintenance to the park that is proposed by Dr. Joel Edwards and his wife Beth. So, open the floor up for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, two really quick questions for our attorney in regards to the context of the contract itself. And very brief layman explanation here. Protection of the taxpayers in two contexts. One, if the build out of the park in the phases within the contract or whatever agreement we have does not take place, do the taxpayers have an out?
Then at that point in time, we do not have to pay any funds out at that stage. What way we've got it set up is that as they complete phase 1, then at that point in time, we pay those funds, and we're actually doing that through EDC, giving money into them, and our checks and balances to make certain that things are done, And as it's done, then those monies will be paid out. And if they're not done, then obviously they'll not be paid out. Or if the county determines that in the next year's budget, we don't have $50,000, and then at that point in time, the agreement, basically both sides can opt out of it.
Thank you. Second, if, sale of the property. If there were a sale of the property to a third party, so to speak, another party, the protection of the taxpayers in regards to that.
At that point in time, it goes not only to the J&B Lake Louise LLC, but also to its assigns. So if it were to be assigned to another party out there, they would be under that same obligation.
And if they determine not to utilize the property, then the contract is null and void in terms of a park, so to speak. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agreement as presented.
Mr. Chairman, I make that motion.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. That is approved, 5-0. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Edwards.
Excuse me, there was
Oh,
I'm
I'm sorry.
sorry.
4-1, I'm sorry, excuse me. All right, that is approved, 4-1. Thank you, Dr. Edwards and Beth, appreciate what you've offered to the county. Okay, so at this time, we'll move to commissioners' comments. Mr. Jones.
Thank you all for being here. We live in a great county. Tomorrow is election day, even though it's going to be raining. Get out there and vote, and just appreciate every one of you all, spiritually and otherwise, that you do for Davie County. It's a great place to live because of all of y'all. Thank you for being here.
Ms. Finney.
Thank you all for being here. I see our crowd has dwindled as the night has gone on, but Dr. Edwards and Beth, I do want to tell you I appreciate what you're doing, and I think it's wonderful you're willing to invest your money. I just personally don't think that that's what we need to do right now, but I applaud you for what you're doing, so please don't think that I don't appreciate that. But I want to say thank you to all the employees, but I want to just point one person out tonight because he puts up with a lot from us, and I just want to thank Ed Vogler for everything that he does. We kind of let him be the silent person, but he does a lot, and he does it with joy and laughter, even when he probably could wring my neck, especially. So thank you, Ed, for all that you do, and all of our employees for what they do. And
Like a kid in a candy store.
and thank you to all the emergency service workers, paid and volunteer. Thank you for all that you do. There are a lot of you who did a lot this past weekend, so thank you very much. And I will also remind you to vote tomorrow. Thank you.
Mr. Poindexter.
I also would like to thank everybody. It was so nice to look out there and see a full house tonight with people standing around the walls. Thank you to everybody that helps to make Davie County a better place to live, which is every person that I see out here has a part in that, and I'd like to sincerely thank you for that. And say congratulations to Steve on his retirement. I know he got out of here as soon as it was over, but I'd like to especially thank Beth and Joel for their generosity toward making this county a much better place to live. Thank you.
Blakely?
I'd also like to give Mr. Moxley my condolences for all his 30 years of service to this county. That's a very impressive piece. I'd also like to recognize a very important person that passed in our county, a jewel of our county, Lester Martin, 95 years, who brought a lot of good stuff to this county. I'm very excited for the Davie County schools. Davie County schools are the reason that actually my family came to this county. My father was very adamant, was a very proactive volunteer. Weimar Davie, North Davie, Davie High, you name it, he did it. So we salute them. and what they do, and they're really one of our biggest selling points still as Davie County schools. The Ignite Davie program, obviously, can't ask for a better program where the rubber meets the roads, and actually, letting a young individual give back and produce in this county, faster than leaving and coming back. So that is a great program. And I have a little bit of humor for everyone tonight. This is the first time in Davie County history that a current Board of Education member has paddled a current Board of Commissioners in 1986. Thank you, Doug Potts. I figured he'd get a kick out of that. Thank you, Mr. Doug Potts. Setting me straight.
That's the reason you are who you are today. All right. Okay, I want to thank everyone for being here and staying with us. As has been said, tomorrow's election day. Please vote. People have died for that right, so please exercise it. With that, I will entertain a motion to go into closed session. But before we do that, I have to read this, so here we go. Entertain a motion to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A3 to consult with an attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, and to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, conditions of appointment, or conditions of initial employment of an individual public officer or employee or prospective public officer or employee. Would someone like to make the motion to go into closed session?
Mr. Chairman, so moved.
Motion and second. All in favor? We are in closed session. We'll be back shortly.
I don't think